Much like planning a wedding, the MM+M Agency 100 is an exercise in hurry up and wait. This project is the result of a long, time-consuming process that requires steadfast dedication and commitment from everyone here at MM+M in order to see it through to the end. Then, that special day arrives and the rest is a blur. After months and months of tireless work on all things big and small, everything comes together into a mix of frenzied celebration and, equally as important, pure elation. I'm proud to say that the 2026 MM+M Agency 100 is officially here. Now you'll get to hear from us, the MM+M editorial team, as we dig into the medical marketing firms that we've been interviewing and writing and reporting about over the past 5 months. In lieu of the trend segment, you'll hear some takeouts from our Women of Distinction ceremony that took place last week in New York. But it's here. It is a living, breathing specimen. I don't know if we all want to take a collective deep breath in and exhale out, but that's how I feel on this day, June 9th.
Can I take a nap?
You can take a nap.
Thanks. We
can all take a siesta. It is noon on Tuesday that we were recording. It's been live in the field, technically 12 hours, about 7 hours of all the profiles being up. But Jameson, I'm going to throw it over to you. Why don't we start off? How do you feel?
I feel great. I learned so much from last year doing it for the first time that we applied to this year. We started even earlier. We were more thoughtful about how everything got assigned and deadlines. And I think everything on our end went smoother than the previous year. And so I was relieved when it went live. I mean, I think last year we were working round the clock all the way up to the day it went live. And this year we this past week, worked a lot, but not quite as extensively. And so I feel real good about where we're at.
And already building off a very solid situation last year when we won a Neil Award for Best Single Issue of a Magazine. So it's a nice place to be building off of. But I agree with you. It's definitely one of those things that I think that starting earlier helps, but then obviously having just the understanding of like, oh yeah, this works, or we're going to tweak and do different stuff. A lot of changes from last year, which again was already a solid foundation. Talk a little bit about the new stuff that people can expect to see when they're on the website and interacting with the A100.
Yeah, so there's a couple of key differences from past years that I think really elevates the user experience, which was the whole idea behind anything we did this year. Was content's great. Everybody, seems to get a lot of value out of it, but we wanted it to make it easier to access. So the first thing you'll notice is the individual agency profile pages. If you've got a podcast related to your agency, it's right there on your page. You don't have to go clicking off your story page to go listen to a podcast or watch a video elsewhere. It's all in one place, which is just fantastic. It's a much crisp, cleaner experience for anybody wanting to learn about any individual agency. And then the other big change is the AI chatbot called MM+M Intelligence. It's something that we're going to continue to refine over time, but at its core is a helper for you to go in there and say, tell me 10 interesting things about Click Health, and it'll go and it'll pull from the profile, the entry form that the agency submitted, any past coverage going back the last 2 years of the agency, and it'll pull out what you're asking for. It can handle a lot of great requests about agencies. It'll pull in, if you ask it, hey, who can help me launch a blood pressure drug? It'll give you a bunch of agencies with cardiovascular experience. And so it's designed to really help you go deeper and learn so much more about the agencies using all this information we have that couldn't fit in just a 500-word profile online. So it's a great tool for anybody, looking for a partner and needing to know more about them.
Yeah, for all the conversation we've had on the podcast about AI and everyone kind of embracing it in different ways for their businesses, that was our way of doing it. It's been months of, pulling data, curating data, testing out this product. So we're very happy to have it out there in the field. And I'm glad, Jameson, from one leader of this brand to another, the way that you have led us, with steadfast dedication to getting this off the ground, I think needs to be commended. So props to you on that end. But I want to throw it over to the rookie on our team, Bella. Last year we got to grill Jameson and be like, this is your first time on A100. What was it like? This is your first time on A100. What was it like?
Yeah, so if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was like my first week or maybe my second week here when the assignments started going out, and I saw the big scary spreadsheet. of all the stories and all my name in the columns. And no, it wasn't scary. It was actually very organized and very impressive. And I can see why we won last year for the work on it. And so it's exciting to just have seen the whole thing come together, and how, like an editorial product can be so vast in reach, and especially with the intelligence tool this year, just like, it's nice to see reporting, especially that all of us have done, the profiles that we did, be sort of like combined into such a useful, like, because everything's so quick and like people need information so fast now. And we talk so much about how to filter through good information. And to your point, like everyone's talking about AI, it's our way of putting good information in front of people, or helpful information rather, in front of people fast. So yeah, I mean, just in sum, I think it was a labor of love. It was a long, intense project as I experienced it, but I'm excited for it to be out now and hear, especially all the positive reactions that people have come out with. What I've heard from folks already this morning is just that they're kind of blown away with it. So.
And the big scary spreadsheet you talk about, Jameson renames it each year. This was the 2026 Super Mega Agency 100 issue master list.
That's why it was scary, by the way. I think it was just the title that freaks me out.
I'm just going to have to come up with an increasingly more intimidating title each year.
Yeah.
But Bella, I had a follow-up question. Death Star. Bella, I had a follow-up question for you, though. Is like, I remember doing my first A100, and like similar to you, had healthcare reporting experience. So I thought I knew a pretty good deal of what I was coming in for. And then, just going through the reporting and the editing and everything, you're like, oh, there's so much more. What stood out to you in terms of like either the trends or like getting to talk with these agencies and really dive into them a little deeper than we do in our normal day to day? What stood out to you in terms of what you came away with?
I think a big sort of theme was not just AI, but to drill down a little bit further, how agencies were educating their team and also trying to, give them a sense of autonomy, control over the rate of change and like the tools, whether, I heard from a number of agencies, they were just buying enterprise plans or whatever to the major players, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, and being like, play around with it and then come to us if you need help, or like, just things. I think that I was really impressed by how much investment there was in education. And I think that sort of gave me a good insight into agency culture writ large, and the importance of like retaining and investing in creatives. That was a big theme.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, whereas maybe you see other businesses that might be, I don't want to say reckless, but a little bit more loose in terms of how they're approaching their AI. I do think that our industry that we cover, and granted we have greater insight into it, is taking a little bit more of a dedicated, thorough approach to it. So I completely back you up on that. Matt, I want to bring you into the conversation because you did this for years and years. You did it through COVID. I don't want to say it was wash, rinse, and repeat after a while, but there was kind of the beats that come along with doing A100. You were out of it for a couple of years. You come back to do it now. What was that like, kind of re-entering the fray?
First of all, I had forgotten what May and June are like around here between the Agency 100 and a bunch of our awards, and then planning for Cannes and everything else. So that was a little bit of a buffeting wind. But the thing about this year's product is that I feel like what our collective vision for, and the industry's vision for what this tool is finally like come to fruition. We've always thought of it as a decision-making tool for in-house pharma marketers to be able to say, okay, I need a partner. Who should I work with? Mm-hmm. Right. And while you can kind of come away with that decision, when you look at the print property or when you look at it online, the addition of the intelligence tool, the AI tool, really, really helps. It kind of makes it come to its full expression of what this can be. And it's only going to get better, right? As it gets smarter, as more stuff gets fed into it, as more people use it, that will only become better. And so I'm really impressed with the team's ability to pull this thing off, especially our Haymarket's tech team. The work that they did to get this thing right was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Jameson and I had those opening conversations, what was it, October or November, being like, hey, we kind of have this idea of making A100 this living, breathing hub. And they said, sure. And, there were deadlines and there were things that we had to do on our end, but it was really a heavy lift on their end too. Jameson, I don't know if you want to talk at all about just, how you talk about being thorough with AI. Like we had to be thorough to get this thing off the ground from a number of perspectives.
Yeah, it was a very fascinating process to be a part of. I'm sure a lot of listeners listening to this have experience building some kind of AI tool internally. But this was a first for us. And it was really cool to see each iteration get better and better and better, because a week ago, it was all over the place with what its answers were. And we refined it as we cut back, how far it could go. We realized it was pulling stories from campaign and PR week that were cross-posted to MM+M and giving responses about general agencies instead of healthcare agencies. And with each question we put into it, we found other things we needed to refine. And then, by last night, we were playing with it. And it was delivering the kind of answers we expected to. And, we cut it close, but we trusted the team here to get it right. They promised us they were going to get it right, and they did, and they delivered a fantastic product. And I'm excited for everybody to go use it, because it really is just great about the kind of questions you can ask it and the information you can get back.
We kind of got to wet our beak a little bit with customer experience too. Like obviously we write and report for a living, but being able to interact with it and say like, oh, should it look like this when it's being presented to the general public or whoever's going to use it, was definitely an eye opener on my end. Lesh, I want to bring you into the conversation because, you and I have been doing this, since 2022 onwards, and we've covered all these different trends in terms of, the great resignation coming out of COVID, the ups and downs of the economy, and obviously the AI boom. What stood out to you in terms of the agencies that you covered this year in terms of trends or just other developments?
Yeah, a couple of things. Bella mentioned AI, and I feel like in the last couple of years, obviously it was like a very charged term that was being thrown around. It was like the big buzzword the last couple of years, and everyone was saying, oh, we don't know if it's going to steal jobs. Like, we don't know what like the massive impact and disruption it's going to have on the industry. And I feel like this year, almost every single agency I spoke with emphasized the need for the human in the loop, more so than in years past, because, they've started to experiment with AI. They've developed several AI tools. They found that maybe some are not working, some aren't working quite in the way they want them to. And they're discovering now that like, actually, we really need to make sure that we have a human there, making sure that it's working properly. And that kind of like ties back to what Jameson just said too, about the tool that we unveiled, like making sure a human is there throughout every step of the process to make sure those iterations are being done correctly. So that was like a big theme on AI that I heard a lot this year. The other thing was, I think when we had started doing our interviews, one of the questions we all had was, given this has been sort of arguably one of the most disruptive periods for pharma advertising, given the FDA crackdown on pharma ads, how is that impacting your business and your agencies? And, I feel I tried to ask that question to every agency, and maybe they weren't being forthcoming about the challenges around it, but I feel like it didn't have as big of an impact as I expected it to have. It seemed like a lot of my agencies still experienced growth. They didn't necessarily see the FDA crackdown on pharma ads as putting like a dampening on the industry, maybe as much as I would have expected. And I'm curious if all of you kind of sensed that as well, or if you noticed some agencies had more of an impact from that than others. But that was another thing that kind of stood out.
What I noticed, I wrote 10 profiles, and what I noticed is that if there was one through line about the letters and about about crackdowns, it was that that effort by the FDA gave the agencies an opportunity to prove their worth or reinforce their worth by developing MLR tools, by creating agents that would take in all the letters and see what the trends were and make sure that they could go back and look at the work that they had done on behalf of clients. To do retrofits if necessary. So I think it, rather than having a chilling effect on work, it had it proved an opportunity. And the proof is in the pudding. Almost everybody I talked to said like first half of the year was not good, second half of the year was great, and all these letters were coming out in the pretty much the last third of the year. So like I said, the proof's in the numbers.
Two agencies stick out to me. One is Saatchi and Saatchi Health. I went to interview them at their offices, and they had said, like, obviously that first week or two, and we covered it, like it was a lot of holy shit, the sky is falling, all this sort of stuff. Like, and it was waiting for the dust to settle and having a little more clarity for their clients and using AI tools too. Like they created, and a lot of other agencies have this too, their own proprietary tool that's based off of all those letters, and being able to put in different campaign assets or stuff and say like, oh, would this likely get flagged? And if so, for what? And being able to adjust from there, but also being able to do a lot of unbranded work too. They talked about being able to expand into spaces that aren't linear TV, that aren't so social media heavy, and to your point, prove their worth in that way. So that was one example of it. MSL was another one that talked a lot about using AI to kind of maneuver the PR challenges that came with not only the letters, but obviously having RFK Jr. and the Trump administration leading health policy and what that meant for pharma brands. So those were two things that stuck out. I take your point there, Lesha, where I think there was a lot of like expectation that there was so much volatility, but I think these are also very flexible and, to use their own term, nimble organizations. They're able to move on the fly with their own capabilities and certainly the technology they have.
Yeah, I've got a few data points here from the survey that I think illustrates how this industry feels about AI, because I think a lot of them don't want to publicly admit individually in these profiles that AI is a challenge. But when you look at the data that's blinded in the survey, last year, more than half of agencies said it was a minimal challenge to stay on top of innovation. This year, almost 60% of agencies said it was either a challenge or a significant challenge. That's a pretty big jump. And then 58% of agencies had found handling AI's disruption to their business is challenging. This year, that number jumped to 70%. Another big jump of agencies saying, yeah, okay, this is messing with our business. And then the one takeaway that I think comes with AI is everybody's been talking about how AI makes their employees more efficient. And one way that you can measure that potentially is when you look at the amount of revenue generated per employee. And the survey last year found it was about $287,000 of revenue per employee across the industry. This year, that number was $310,000. So an 8% jump, which is more than inflation. So I think you can make the argument that AI tools are making employees more efficient and allowing organizations to drive more revenue with fewer people.
Did the total number of employees in that survey increase or decrease?
This year it increased. So last year was the first year we had seen it decline about 3%. This year it was up, not much. It was only up about a couple hundred employees across the industry. But it was at least a return towards employee growth across these 100 plus agencies.
So that reinforces your point about revenue per head count.
Yeah. Revenue overall increased about 10% across the 100 agencies in the A100 this year.
I want to give Jameson a special shout out. This is apropos of nothing, but like he just said, like, oh, it was an 8% jump. Like when I put my things in there where it's like, oh, this agency grew from whatever revenue to that, like always coming in and saying like, oh yeah, that's 7%. I'm just not that good of, back of the envelope math. So shout out to Jameson for that.
This is the second time in this podcast you've sucked up to your boss.
Yeah. and I'm going to keep doing it. It served me well thus far. I'll say that. I had a question though for you, Jameson, too. Like one of the, obviously the overarching themes from an advertising perspective too, was the impact of the Omnicom IPG takeover. Got to speak with a lot of, Omnicom agencies, former IPG agencies that have been either rebranded or have, exist within Omnicom. What did you make out in terms of, what you saw from the impact on the landscape from that perspective?
I mean, the obvious one is just the consolidation. In the A100 last year, there were more than 20 companies that were, part of Omnicom or IPG. In the A100 this year, it was, I think, less than half of that. I think there was maybe 9 directly through Omnicom Health, and then a handful of other shops that live within those holding companies, like Virgo. So, I mean, that was the obvious one. And plus, when you look at the other consolidation across the industry, I think we had 23 new agencies in the A100, which is a ton. I mean, you look at the bottom 20 and almost every single one of them is new to the A100. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 agencies that were, in that bottom 20 who, were around last year, or at least in the A100. So I think that's the obvious impact of Last year the cutoff was, I think, $15 million to be in the A100. This year it was 12, I believe. So that was the first time that number had ever gone backwards. And that's just a product of consolidation.
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear the conversations about, some of them are like, yep, we're just going to keep going. And a lot of it's like, odd bedfellows in terms of like, oh yeah, we're kind of creating this new thing together and new names, new structures, new leadership. So it'll be interesting to see the long tail on that. But it was it was an interesting conversation with a number of different agencies there. Are there any other, I have one final question, for the entire group, but I'm curious if there's anything in terms of, other findings or takeaways or trends that you noticed that we haven't talked about here that you think is important for the audience to keep in mind as they go through this online and in the magazine.
Well, this is just a particular pet peeve of mine.
I want to hear it.
So, as an editor and as a writer, you want specifics, right? Mm-hmm. And you want things to be different, right? So that you're not telling the same story over and over again 100 times, right? Mm-hmm. So in my interviews, I told people, I said, I'm going to ask you a question about why a client should choose you, what mm-hmm. makes you, what separates you from the pack. And you absolutely cannot say it's your culture or your people. And
how'd that go?
It was funny. I would say probably 5 people said, okay, I won't say it's my culture and my people, but it's my culture and my people. Mm-hmm. So it remains, it remains a really strong example. But I would say to the industry, it's also becoming almost a trope. So please do a better job at being able to articulate what precisely it is that makes you different. And don't be afraid to say, because we're a network and we can pull in from all these different places. Mm-hmm. Or if it's like, oh, it's my people, be specific and say, it's like, I employ a ton of scientists. I have a ton of PhDs here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's technically my people, but it's your people's expertise and skill. So focus on that.
I completely take that point. I think there were some either Omnicom or Publicis agencies that did talk about scale. And it's like, it's not bragging. It's not, it's
just a fact.
It's just a fact of like, we can scale. We have the expertise and we have the scale and resource to be able to do what our clients need. So that's our superpower. What were you going to say, Jameson?
I was going to just piggyback off of the specific thing of, if you're an agency and you read your profile and you think to yourself, oh man, I wish there was, I wish we stood out more. It's always about specifics. Like mm-hmm. I cannot explain enough how important it is to tell us real things you're doing and describe them. You go read Ogilvy Health's profile, and they had to check on the call with me whether they could discuss the thing they discussed, which was an ad that they produced entirely with AI for AstraZeneca. You read that, you get a full understanding of what Ogilvy Health did for AstraZeneca using AI in a way that I think is, after reading all 100 of these profiles, is completely unique to Ogilvy Health. And it's because they were candid and they were honest with us. And there's other profiles where that doesn't come through, and it's solely on the agency to give us interesting things that really set you apart.
Yeah, and tangible results, like giving us tangible results about a new tool or a campaign that you did. I feel like that is also something we always want to hear.
Yeah, Jacques told me that they created the world's largest ball of used bandages, and got well, maybe they weren't used, but and they got a Guinness World Record for doing this thing in Times Square. It's like, that's super specific, and it's a perfect illustration of creativity.
Yeah, I think about when I was doing Syneos Health and I was talking to Janine O'Kane, and she would talk about some things, and she would look at her PR person in the Zoom call, and she's like, is it okay to say that? Is it okay? And just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm encouraging you. I'm like, keep being more specific. And none of it was off the record. None of it was stricken. Like, yeah, go and brag about the things that you do, especially when you have the money and resources and talent to go do it. Like, that should be what you're after. So
flex.
Yeah, do exactly what Jack just said, and what Ogilvy Health did, which was they put themselves on mute. They talked in the room together to make sure they could talk about an example. They confirmed it, and then they spilled a whole lot of great information to us that made for an incredible write up.
And don't come back after the interview and say, "Oh, I couldn't say that. Can you take that out?"
Yeah. Yeah. No givesies backsies when you're dealing with MM+M. Well, this has been a great conversation in terms of trends and everything, but we have to get to the most important question, which is obviously the theme, which was video games. And we talked about this in an earlier episode, just our own. You don't want to do that?
No, don't ask me.
Oh, I'm not going to ask you? Okay. Man's opting out of that. But I'm going to ask the rest of the team what your favorite video game cover was. I'll go out there and say Simray was my number one pick. Our friend Nadine LaFond was on the cover as CEO of Imray. I just think it was great. Sims, what's not to love? Bella?
I think mine was Calcium and Company, just for staying on theme, even though it might have seemed hard to include a milk reference in a video game cover.
Calcium will never miss a chance to talk about milk.
Love milk over there.
What about you, James? What about you, Jameson?
I loved, I believe it was DNA Communications for the Mortal Kombat. I mean, can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, a classic one. I think that was, if it wasn't in my top 5, it was an honorable mention. How about you, Lasha?
Purely from a visual standpoint, I liked Real Chemistry's one. It kind of has like a 1980s like fantasy poster vibe, so I kind of like that one.
I think the one that got a lot of props too, and I forget which agency did it. I don't know if it was Heartbeat or whatever. There was one of Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and that was a really good cover. That was one of the 10.
Yeah, that was probably my second.
That was a really good one. Well, this was, I can't believe it. Like, it's one of those things that like you just rush through for 3 months and then you get to here and you're like, oh yeah, it's like Tuesday and it's out in the world and it's living and breathing and people can look at it. But I really appreciate everyone again for all the hard work. And it goes not only for, the 5 of us on this call, it goes to Fitz, our podcast producer, who had to go through all of these audio recordings, these sponsored podcasts, get those out the door. Our sales team that went out there and sold all these podcasts and video shoots, the custom team that makes those actually happen, our marketing team, our friends on the Content Hub, Kevin Zitzman, Gordon Failer, our art team, also Lisa Gill, our art team of Sean Ailing and David Lee. There's just so many people that go into this, and I would be remiss if we didn't give them a shout out, because it's not just us writing, reporting, it's the whole apparatus. And certainly this year too, our tech team at Haymarket Media for being able to stand up that MM+M intelligence tool that, again, you're only going to see more of as we go forward with more content, more honorariums, more everything. So there's more to come, but I don't have anything else. You got anything else?
No, I just, there's a whole bunch of tabs now that I can close.
Yeah.
Right. And on the can, right?
Jameson said when he sent out the super mega agency list, he was like, this is your Bible. And once I get to June 9th, I get to delete that from my bookmarks, at least for a few months. Right. So thank God it's out of here. But yeah, shout out to the entire team. You're going to hear some takeouts from our Women of Distinction ceremony after this, and we'll wrap there. But next week on the podcast, you'll get to hear from the CEO of Avalier Health about their new campaign that they just launched. Looking forward to the conversation with Amar. But otherwise, enjoy those takeouts, and you can probably find me at a bar later or just laying flat on the floor, because that's how I'm going to unwind after all this. So thank you again for listening, and take care. We'll see you next week.
Welcome to MM+M's 11th annual Women of Distinction event.
Susan Dorfman, CEO, CMI Media Group.
My name is Gozde Dinç, Marketing Director, and I work at Genentech.
Dalita Kamunga, Senior Vice President of Partnerships at MD Newsline.
Kim Verity, Creative Director, Princeton 10.
Obviously not a stranger to anybody in our orbit in the podcast. Susan Dorfman of CMI, thank you so much for stopping by to our lovely little setup here at Women of Distinction.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And congratulations on being a Women of Distinction honoree. Why don't we just start there? What does it mean to be a recipient of that honor? Obviously so well deserved, but what does it mean for you?
It really is a huge honor. The honor not just to receive the award, but to know that there are people who nominated you for the award. I don't think there's a better gift that in your professional career you could expect. To come in every day, do what you love, and then have people who you love actually recognize you and nominate you for that. So, greatest gift I could have gotten.
When I received that email, it was obviously a very big honor, but it was more than just thinking, oh, I just won an award. My mind immediately went into the mentors, the people that helped me get there. And it was really like, look at how I got there, thanks to all the people that helped me, all the people that I stand on the shoulders of. So that was my first thought, and really thinking through about women in leadership. And, this event really represents a big meaning within women in leadership. I was thinking about how women don't even just belong at the table anymore. They redefine the table, redesign the table, and prove that you can be very caring of people, at the same time sets very high bars for your teams. You can be empathetic, at the same time very ambitious. So I love that about women leaders, that they proved both of these things can be true, and really redefining leadership in that way.
What does it mean to be named as a woman of distinction?
It's a tremendous honor. I know how many women have come up in this industry, how many women I've worked with, and to be recognized for the work that we do and the impact that we make, I'm floored. It's exciting, and it means a lot to make a change in healthcare the way that we do.
Delita, you and I have to stop meeting like this. We saw each other at Healthfront. We just keep meeting at industry powwows. So it's wonderful to have you here at Women of Distinction.
Yes.
You were honoree last year. You're here back in the room. Talk about just what it's like. I mean, we're in a super crowded room. What's it like being back here?
I mean, just to be here is amazing. I mean, like you said, I was here last year, just getting awarded. And I think the best thing is to continue to show up for other women, right? I mean, I was able to nominate somebody this year, and to just see her be so proud of herself do it, and let somebody see her for who she is and all the work that she's put into this industry. It's just an incredible feeling of that bounce back, right? And so just being here and seeing all these women, their mothers, their daughters, their friends, it's just incredible to be here and to shout out these women. So it's been great.
You want to shout out the woman that you did nominate?
Oh yeah, Jessica Voss at Lilly.
And what did you see in Jessica where you're like, that's somebody I want?
You know what? This is special. So Jessica, I love working with her. It's just something about that fresh perspective that she gives, and someone that is just not afraid to just do introductions and to be an advocate for the work that she does at Lilly. I see her grow. I see her blossom. I see her be the bad person that she is. I don't want to say the cuss word, but she's phenomenal, and I'm just so proud of her. And so I've seen that, and I'm like, you know what? This is your award. It has your name over it, and so let me go ahead and nominate you. So congrats again, Jess.
Congrats to Jessica, and obviously congrats again to you for taking home the honor last year. I am curious, like a lot of the programming that they've had in the panels thus far have touched on a lot of different really interesting subjects.
Yes.
Anything resonated for you in terms of what they've been talking about up there?
Oh my goodness, like there's so many things. I'll be here a while, but I think the biggest thing, just hearing all the women show how they got here and how we're all the same, right? We're all equally the same, that, when it comes to thinking about yourself and putting yourself first, and making a seat for yourself at the table, and really thinking about your health and prioritizing yourself. I mean, the things that resonate through everybody here is the same things that continue to be said across the panel, because it's about leadership and why we got here and why we're celebrating each other. And so that message altogether is just so critically important, and I'm going to take that home with me, because we work really hard to get where we are, but we have to think about why we got here, and take time to breathe, reset, refresh, take it all in, but just remember that our health matters, right? And so preach to others, but also preach to ourselves. Yeah.
I love when people are up there talking about like burnout and being able to kind of have that work-life balance.
Exactly.
You just saw everyone in the crowd like really resonating with them.
And that's why I love this award, but right? Yeah. Women to Watch and Women of Distinction, like we really are equally important. I mean, we had, if it can be 50 or maybe 100 people that get this award, it'll even be even bigger, because everybody deserves this award to some extent, right? Because we all put so much work into the work that we do. And so, I just love the panel.
You've got a great table here, just full of CMI folks, full of clients and everything. I'm curious what you make of, we've had some programming here talking about mentorship, talking about sisterhood, talking about a lot of really relevant topics. Has anything resonated with you in terms of what you've heard from people?
Everything. Just seeing so many incredible women talking about such important things that I don't know that 5-10 years ago we would have ever talked about. It was amazing.
I'm curious what you make of, the evolution that we've seen in terms of women in leadership in this industry and all the different agencies and organizations that you've been with. Like, what has that been like from your own perspective?
Incredibly encouraging. I think when I started, especially at CMI, I think I was the first and only female C-level person, VP level person. To see how many women are here in this room, how many of them have high-level titles, how many of them are acknowledged and growing, it just makes me feel incredibly proud and hopeful.
It's huge for sure. I think it's huge for every leader, but even more for women leaders. A lot of us had to carve our own paths. There was actually one speaker that talked about how she didn't come from a traditional background and she had to carve her own path and got a lot of help and mentorship along the way. So that definitely resonated with me a lot when I think about my own journey. And it's just so energizing to be amongst such a super group of women in leadership, in marketing and media. So that's been an amazing experience.
We talked a lot at lunch about bosses, both good and bad.
Yes.
And you're a boss now.
Yes.
Right? What have you learned from female mentors that you bring to work every day and try to apply? What lessons have you learned in that respect?
Yeah, I've had a really strong female mentor most of my career. Her name was Ellen Gorsica. She is somebody I still talk to this day. And really what she's taught me is to get my hands in there and not to be afraid to do the work myself and to show people the way towards doing really good work. I admire somebody who isn't afraid to make mistakes and who is willing to put themselves on the line. And that's a lot of what she's taught me.
If you could go back to yourself at the start of your career, if I gave you a time machine, you get to impart one piece of wisdom or advice to yourself at the start of your career, what would that be?
You know, especially from women in my team, I keep hearing this imposter syndrome. And I heard that today as well in one of the talks. I probably had that when I was, earlier in my career too. And I do tell my team right now, and I would remind that to my 20-year-old self, that, you belong in that big room. You don't have to always be 100% ready for that next big step that you want to take. Take that stretch assignment, just do it, learn by doing, and you belong. You got this. That's one thing that I would tell my younger self, and I tell the women in my team today.
Oh my goodness, one piece of wisdom. Wow, my journey has been quite long and quite interesting, but what I would tell Delita in just one piece of wisdom to other people, first I would tell myself, it's going to work out, it's going to happen, you don't have to have all the answers, and that's the same to everybody else. You will not have all the answers when it comes to your career, you will not have all the answers when it comes to your next step or what to do sometimes, but seek the answers in others. It's okay to ask questions, right? It's okay to ask the question, ask the questions, right? I tell people that all the time. And also just, it's okay to slow down too. It really is. And I think that's what I would tell myself and others. You can do it all, but you don't have to do it all at that time, right? It's okay to raise your hand on the panel. Raise our hands, yes, but let's do it at a time that works well for us, because the assistance will still be needed, right? The help will still be needed. The opportunities will still be there, but let's just continue to slow down, right? And take the time for ourselves. That's what I would tell others.
If you could go back to yourself at the start of your career and pass along even just one bit of advice, what would it have been?
Don't be scared. Just go and do. There's no such thing as failure, only education.
Susan, really appreciate you being on here. Anything else you want to share with our audience before you go across stage and get your honor?
Just keep doing this. Keep acknowledging, keep raising people up. Thank you for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much.